Will and I met in 2010.
When we were both summer students at the legislature. We were good friends for a really long time. I'd always kind of had a thing for her.
We were both in, stages of our lives where we were studying hard, focused on different things. Will went to school in Chicago to do his master's, and when he came back, he moved into the same apartment building downtown as me.
So she for sure made the first move. If she says otherwise, she's lying.
We both are quite close with our families, and when we got together, we knew that we wanted to grow a family of our own. I remember sitting at my desk and just feeling something in my stomach and being like, that was new. And that night I went home and took a pregnancy test. It was positive. He was working late, and I think I made a big excuse for him to come home.
Ellen was sitting in bed, had this kind of mischievous smile, told me to look over on my side of the bed, and she had a pregnancy test.
We were both just in shock. Like, this happened so fast. Like, oh my gosh, like, we're going to have a child. This is going to be really life-changing.
And the first words out of my mouth were, I need life insurance. We ended up just by happenstance getting into an early ultrasound. I noticed she kept taking the same picture over and over again and marking 1A and marking 1B.
And all I saw was two black things looking at me. And she just mentioned, like, yeah, there are two in there. And I was just like, the two babies? We stopped at the receptionist. She mentioned, oh, by the way, the appointments that you had pre-booked for your next ultrasounds, we're going to cancel those because you'll be going to the hospital now. Your pregnancy is high risk. And that was the first reminder for me that this wasn't going to be a straightforward pregnancy. Everything was smooth sailing until just at the end of my second trimester. I was just past 27 weeks pregnant. That evening I was home alone, and I still just felt like, I don't feel good. And so it was close to midnight where I started thinking, like, do we need to go back to the hospital? Is that crazy to go back? You're just there like 12 hours ago.
I packed possibly the most useless pregnancy bag of all time, Birkenstocks. Like, I don't know what she's supposed to do with those. And went to the hospital.
There was a lot more concern with what was happening, even just physically looking at me and how much pain I was in. I had started to panic just seeing the people around me kind of starting to panic. Dr. Ramadan was in our room and confirmed what was our worst fear, which was I was in labor. And she just said, just given how far along you are, you need to get ready to have your babies today.
I basically just spent the entire day trying not to break down in front of her.
The only thing I cared about was, are my babies going to be okay? And I knew that no one could ever answer that question, but it was the only thing I cared about. And you just have to keep on asking it, just hoping that someone will tell you yes, even though I know that no one could. John was born very uneventfully.
Heard him cry, which was a huge relief. Quickly got to see him. He was tiny.
The obstetrics team handed John off to the neonatal team to get him transported to the NICU. The obstetrics team turned back to me, and it was very quickly apparent that something was wrong.
One of the nurses rushed me out of the room. I looked back. Ellen was being put out. They were doing an emergency section for baby number 2.
I woke up an hour or so later in recovery. I don't know how many times I asked, like, they're stable, like, they're okay, like, they're alive. And he's like, yes. It was just everything I needed to hear.
Hi.
Then I was, a proud dad. It's like, okay, time to go call some people. That was really exciting, but telling people you had a 3-pound baby and a 2-pound, 12-ounce baby is still a little bit different.
What had happened with baby B was my placenta had detached from my uterus, leaving the baby without any oxygen or blood supply or anything.
This is Ellen getting to hold baby John for the first time.
Baby A was doing all right. Baby B was having some problems, so one of the real fears that we had was, is he going to be okay?
The criteria for us to bring our babies home was they needed to be at least 4 pounds. And they needed to be off oxygen support, take food by bottles, regulate their own body temperature without a warmer, go 5 days without having a bradycardia or apnea episode. Throughout the week, we would learn that their heart valves were not closed. When they did John's brain scan, they did find a bleed. Arthur had a very eventful delivery, and it was very clear early on that he was struggling more than John.
Things were up and down for the next little while. They got extubated, and then were on assisted breathing. But John getting the PICC line, Arthur ended up needing a transfusion, different infections sort of throughout their time. Their digestive systems were so immature. They would regurgitate their food and then stop breathing.
Day 39, they brought them over to me and they moved their oxygen carts, and we had kind of like tubes coming from both sides. But I just had both of them in front of me, and just being able to look at both of them at the same time and like seeing them together. It was the first time I felt like a twin mom. We were like making such a good momentum, and we were really getting somewhere, and like maybe home was like in our sight. And in a 24-hour period, he had like 16 of these episodes.
Watching them struggle, have episodes, and not be able to do anything about it. It's a really powerless feeling.
You know, you're so grateful that they are doing as well as they're doing. In that moment, you just want to go home.
John got discharged first, 81 days after he was born.
I got a call from NICU, and they're like, hey, you know what, we're pretty full, like, can you come get John? We'll get these appointments ready tomorrow, but you can take him home today. Like, he's passed everything, the doctors can sign off their papers. I just was like, what?
It wasn't done yet, though, because Arthur was still in for a while. Wasn't clear how long he was going to be in.
You're kind of like in disbelief seeing like the numbers on their little board each day go up, and thinking like 80, and then 90, and then 100. Caring for a newborn at home while also having a newborn in the hospital, and going back and forth, every day on very little sleep, and just trying to, be the best mom you can and to embrace your first days with the baby at home. So it was quite an exhausting time.
We got the call saying Arthur could go home. Rushed down to the hospital, the three of us, got Arthur dressed, and then it kind of became surreal that we were leaving the NICU after 101 days.
A special chapter in our life was like coming to a close, and the people that we have like came to know really well and have like cared for our kids and walked us through some of like the scariest days of our lives. As bad as I wanted to have both of my babies at home, I just appreciated everything that the NICU gave us during that time. Wake up the next morning with everyone at home, and just being able to like sit still and know we had nowhere to be but right there. This was like a feeling in a moment that, will stay in my heart forever.
Watching them grow, develop little personalities, develop interests and preferences, it's surreal.
We were very fortunate that they have been on track with all of their milestones. They are very, very curious and talkative, and love puzzles and socializing, and have been able to attend daycare. We still are followed by a pediatrician. Being parents of kids who have, maybe some complex needs, it takes the scary out of it when you have a team around you that knows your kids and is there to advocate for them.
Ellen and I are grateful to the Hospitals of Regina Foundation and every one of its donors. I'm lucky to be a dad, and I'm lucky that those two little boys got the care they did.
When you're in a situation where you know that you've done everything that you can as a mom. Like, you tried so hard to have a healthy pregnancy, but for whatever reason, and a reason I will probably never know, that wasn't enough. For my babies to come home, they're going to need that care, and their lives are going to be dependent on the NICU and the investments and the staff. Knowing that the Hospitals of Regina Foundation takes such pride in making those investments that help babies like ours not just survive, but thrive and have great long-term outcomes. It means everything to us.
Thank you. You've changed our lives.